Captain Marcus Chen never imagined his routine diplomatic mission would end with an alien queen declaring him her chosen mate.
The whole mess started when Earth's newest colony ship, the Horizon's Dream, suffered a catastrophic engine failure 3 light-years from the nearest human settlement. Marcus had been commanding a small escort frigate, the Terra's Shield, when the distress beacon pierced through hyperspace. His crew of 12 specialists had responded immediately, but, upon arrival, they found something far worse than mechanical failure. The colony ship drifted dead in space, its hull breached in 17 locations by what appeared to be energy weapon strikes. "Captain, I'm reading no life signs aboard the Horizon's Dream," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from her scanner station. "But, there's another vessel approaching from the asteroid belt.
Unknown configuration."
Marcus studied the tactical display as a sleek, crystalline ship emerged from the shadows of tumbling rocks. Its design defied human engineering principles, flowing curves that seemed to bend light around them, propulsion systems that left no visible exhaust trail, and a hull that shifted colors like oil on water.
"Hail them," Marcus ordered, settling into his command chair.
Years of military training had taught him to project confidence even when facing the unknown. The response came immediately, not through their communication systems, but directly into their minds. A melodious voice, distinctly feminine, spoke in perfect English despite the impossible circumstances.
"Human vessel, I am Queen Zara THYSS of the Ethereal Dominion.
Your people attempted to traverse our sacred breeding grounds without permission.
They have paid the price for this transgression."
The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Marcus felt his crew's eyes upon him, waiting for orders that could determine the fate of not just his ship, but, potentially Earth's entire expansion into this sector of space. "Queen Zara THYSS, Marcus replied aloud, hoping she could hear him as clearly as he heard her. "I am Captain Marcus Chen of the Terran Defense Force."
Those were innocent civilians seeking new worlds to call home. They meant no disrespect to your people or your territory.
A sound that might have been laughter echoed through their minds.
"Innocent?
Your species spreads across the galaxy like a plague, consuming resources and destroying ecosystems wherever you land.
Yet you speak of innocence?"
The alien queen's ship moved closer, and, through the viewscreen, Marcus could see figures moving within its translucent hull. They appeared humanoid but elongated, with skin that gleamed like polished metal and eyes that burned with inner light. "Your people," the voice continued, "possess something my kind has long sought.
Emotional depth. Passion.
The ability to love and hate with equal intensity. Most species in this galaxy have evolved beyond such primitive responses. But, you humans burn bright with feelings that make life worth living." Marcus exchanged worried glances with his tactical officer.
Where was this conversation heading?
"I have studied your species for many cycles," Queen Zara THYSS continued. "Your literature, your music, your capacity for both creation and destruction. You fascinate me in ways I cannot fully explain to your limited understanding."
"If you're so interested in humanity," Marcus said carefully, "why did you attack our colony ship?" "A test," came the immediate response. "To see how you would respond. Would you flee? Would you attack without provocation? Or would you attempt communication and understanding?"
The alien vessel stopped just outside optimal weapons range, close enough to demonstrate superior technology, far enough to avoid appearing immediately threatening. Marcus realized this entire encounter had been orchestrated from the moment they received the distress signal.
"You passed the test, Captain Marcus Chen," the Queen's voice carried what sounded like approval.
"Your courage in facing an unknown threat, your concern for civilian lives, your attempt at diplomatic resolution rather than violent confrontation, these qualities mark you as exceptional among your species."
"I'm just doing my job," Marcus replied, though unease crept up his spine.
"Perhaps.
But, I have made my decision.
According to the ancient laws of my people, when a queen finds a being worthy of joining her bloodline, she may claim them as her eternal consort."
"I claim you, Marcus Chen."
The bridge erupted in shocked murmurs. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face as the implications hit him like a physical blow.
"Your Majesty," he managed, "I'm honored by your interest, but I cannot accept such an arrangement. I have duties to my people, responsibilities to my crew."
"Your crew will be well cared for," the Queen responded without hesitation. They will be returned to Earth with technologies that will advance your civilization by centuries.
Your people will benefit greatly from this union. And, if I refuse? Silence stretched across the void between ships.
When the Queen spoke again, her mental voice carried undertones of steel beneath its melodic surface.
Refusal is not permitted under our laws. You have been chosen. However, I am not without mercy. You may have time to adjust to this reality. 3 of your solar cycles to settle your affairs and prepare for the bonding ceremony. Marcus stood, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. You're talking about kidnapping. About forcing me into a marriage against my will. I speak of honor. Of destiny.
Of a union that could bridge 2 species and prevent the wars that would otherwise consume this sector of space. The Queen's voice softened slightly.
I do not wish you harm, Marcus Chen. In time, you may come to understand the gift I offer.
The crystalline ship began to move away, but the Queen's voice remained clear in their minds.
3 cycles, Captain.
Use them wisely. When I return, you will come with me willingly, or watch as your species faces the combined might of the ethereal dominion and our allies.
The choice, ultimately, is yours.
The alien vessel vanished in a flash of light that left afterimages dancing across the viewscreen. Marcus sank back into his command chair, his mind reeling from the impossible situation.
Captain? Lieutenant Kim's voice seemed to come from very far away. Your orders?
Marcus stared at the empty space where the Queen's ship had been, weighing the fate of humanity against his personal freedom.
3 years to find a solution to an impossible problem.
3 years to somehow escape a fate that seemed sealed by forces beyond his understanding. Set course for Earth, he said finally.
Maximum speed.
And send a priority message to command. Tell them we have a problem that makes first contact protocols look like a training exercise. As the Terra shield jumped to hyperspace, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life as a simple starship captain had just ended forever. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, an alien queen waited with patience born of centuries, secure in the knowledge that her chosen consort would eventually accept his destiny. The question that haunted Marcus during the long journey home was simple: how do you fight a war against someone who claims to love you? Earth's response to Marcus's report exceeded even his worst expectations. Within days of his arrival, every major government, military organization, and scientific institution wanted to interview him. He spent weeks in debriefing sessions, psychological evaluations, and strategy meetings that seemed to go in circles. The consensus was troubling: humanity was woefully unprepared for a conflict with a species that possessed technology centuries ahead of their own. The ethereal Dominion ships could appear anywhere without warning, strike with weapons that ignored conventional shielding, and disappear before retaliation was possible. We're looking at extinction, Admiral Rodriguez said bluntly during one of the high-level briefings.
Unless we can find some way to negotiate.
With respect, sir, Marcus replied, I don't think Queen Zara THYSS is interested in negotiation. She's already decided what she wants. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenopsychologist, leaned forward in her chair.
Captain Chen, based on your description of the encounter, I believe the Queen's interest in you goes beyond simple attraction.
Her species may require emotional and genetic diversity to prevent stagnation. Your refusal could be seen as a threat to their survival. Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of billions of lives pressing down on his shoulders.
So you're suggesting I should just accept her proposal? Sacrifice myself for the greater good? I'm suggesting, Dr. Vasquez said gently, that we need to understand what drives her. If this is truly about survival, there may be alternatives we haven't considered.
The months that followed were a blur of preparation and desperate research. Earth's scientists worked around the clock to develop new weapons and defensive technologies, while diplomats tried to establish contact with other species who might have encountered the ethereal dominion. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, neither free to live his own life nor able to forget the sword hanging over humanity's head.
He trained with new equipment, studied alien psychology, and tried to prepare for a future he couldn't imagine.
6 months before the deadline, everything changed. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A deep space monitoring station detected transmissions from the vegan system. The signals were clearly artificial, but they weren't from any known human colony. When the linguistics team finally decoded the messages, they revealed something extraordinary.
They're from survivors of the colony ship, Dr. Sarah Mitchell announced to the emergency council session. The Horizon's Dream passengers weren't killed. They were taken prisoner.
Marcus felt his heart stop.
Are you certain? The transmissions include personal identification codes that match the passenger manifest. They're alive, Captain. All 47,000 of them. The implications hit the room like a physical blow.
If the colonists were still alive, it meant the Queen's attack hadn't been the ruthless slaughter it appeared. But it also meant she held 47,000 human hostages. This changes everything, Admiral Rodriguez muttered. She's not just threatening our future expansion, she's got leverage over our people right now. Marcus stared at the decoded messages scrolling across the conference room screen. Names he recognized, families who had left Earth seeking a better life, now prisoners of an alien queen who wanted to make him her consort. There's more, Dr. Mitchell continued. The messages indicate the colonists are being held in what they describe as golden cages, comfortable prison facilities where they're studied but not harmed. They mention being interviewed about human culture, emotions, and social structures. She's learning about us, Marcus realized.
Preparing for what? Invasion? Integration?
Or preparing for you, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. If she truly intends to make you her consort, she'll want to understand your species thoroughly. The prisoners are giving her that understanding. The weight of responsibility settled even more heavily on Marcus's shoulders. It wasn't just about preventing a war anymore, it was about saving people who were already suffering because of the Queen's obsession with him. As the final year of the deadline approached, Marcus made a decision that would change everything.
He couldn't save humanity by running or hiding. He couldn't protect the colonists by staying on Earth.
If Queen Zara THYSS wanted him, he would meet her on his own terms. But, first, he had to understand his enemy.
And that meant going places no human had ever gone before.
The modified stealth ship Silent Arrow dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the vegan system exactly 2 years and 11 months after Queen Zara THYSS had first made her claim. Marcus stood on the bridge of the experimental vessel, surrounded by the finest technology Earth could produce and a hand-picked crew of specialists who had volunteered for what might be a suicide mission. Passive sensors are picking up massive structures in orbit around Vega Prime, reported Commander Lisa Park, his new tactical officer.
Energy signatures unlike anything in our database.
Marcus studied the holographic display that materialized before them. The Ethereal Dominion's home system was a marvel that defied human understanding of physics and engineering. Crystalline cities floated in perfect formation around the star, each one the size of Earth's moon, connected by bridges of pure light that stretched across millions of kilometers.
Captain, whispered Dr. James Crawford, the team's xenobiologist, are we looking at a Dyson sphere variant?
Something far more sophisticated, Marcus replied, noting how the structures seemed to pulse with their own internal rhythm.
They're not just harvesting the star's energy, they're conducting it like a symphony.
The past year had been spent preparing for this moment. Marcus had undergone genetic modifications that would allow him to survive in alien environments, neural implants that might protect him from psychic manipulation, and intensive training in alien psychology. But, standing here now, facing the impossible beauty of an entire civilization that existed on a scale beyond human comprehension, he felt utterly inadequate. "Sir, we're being scanned," Park reported. "The energy patterns they're reading us down to the quantum level." Before Marcus could respond, that familiar melodious voice filled their minds.
"Welcome, Marcus Chen. You arrived precisely when my calculations predicted you would. Your punctuality is most human."
The viewscreen shimmered, and, suddenly, they were looking at Queen Zara THYSS herself. She stood in what appeared to be a throne room made entirely of living crystal, her form tall and graceful beyond human standards. Her skin held the same metallic sheen Marcus remembered, but now he could see the intricate patterns that flowed across it like circuitry made of liquid starlight. "Your Majesty," Marcus said formally, grateful that his voice remained steady.
"I've come to discuss the terms of your proposal." "Have you indeed?"
The Queen's expression, if the subtle shifts in her luminous features could be called expressions, suggested amusement.
And what terms did you wish to discuss? The release of the human colonists.
Their safety was never part of our original agreement.
Agreement?
Queen Zara THYSS stepped closer to whatever device was transmitting her image, and Marcus caught his breath. She was beautiful in a way that transcended species, with features that seemed perfectly balanced between the familiar and the utterly alien.
We had no agreement, Marcus Chen. I made a declaration. You have now responded to that declaration.
The Queen gestured, and the view screen split to show another scene, the human colonists living in what could only be described as a paradise. Golden cities filled with gardens, advanced technology providing every comfort, humans walking freely among ethereal Dominion citizens who treated them with careful respect.
Your people are not prisoners, the Queen continued. They are honored guests, learning about our civilization as we learn about theirs. Many have expressed interest in remaining permanently. Marcus felt his carefully prepared arguments crumble. The colonists didn't look like prisoners or hostages. They looked happy.
But they weren't given a choice, he said finally.
Choice. The Queen repeated the word as if tasting something foreign. An interesting concept. Tell me, Marcus Chen, when your species discovered fire, did the flame choose to burn? When your ancestors first looked up at the stars, did the stars choose to shine? Some things simply are, regardless of choice.
Destiny isn't the same as choice, Marcus argued.
Humans believe in free will.
And yet you are here, Queen Zara THYSS pointed out. Despite having the choice to remain on your world and ignore my claim.
You chose to come to me.
The truth of that statement hit harder than Marcus expected. He had come here, despite every rational argument against it. Despite knowing he was flying into a trap that might doom his entire species. I came to protect my people, he said.
Did you? Or did you come because some part of you was curious about what I offer?
The Queen's eyes, brilliant gold with depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies, fixed on his through the transmission.
Your own xenopsychologists have concluded that this union could benefit both our species. Why do you resist what could bring prosperity to billions?
Before Marcus could answer, Dr. Crawford touched his arm. Captain, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout the system.
Ships unlike anything we've seen before.
The Queen's image shifted to show the space around Vega Prime. Hundreds of vessels moved in perfect coordination, their crystalline hulls catching and reflecting starlight in patterns that created an ever-changing light show across the void. Each ship was unique, as if individually grown rather than manufactured.
The Dominion's wedding fleet, Queen Zara THYSS explained. Representatives from 17 allied species have come to witness our bonding ceremony. Your arrival signals the beginning of 3 days of celebration that will unite our peoples permanently. And, if I refuse to participate?
Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Then, they will witness something far less pleasant.
The Queen's voice carried no threat, just statement of fact. The Dominion does not accept challenges to royal decree lightly.
Your refusal would be seen as an insult that demands correction. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices. Fight a hopeless war that would end in humanity's extinction, or accept a marriage that would save billions at the cost of his freedom. There is a third option, the Queen said, as if reading his thoughts.
Come aboard my vessel.
Spend the next 3 days learning about what I truly offer. If, at the end of that time, you still wish to refuse, I will allow you and your people to depart unharmed.
You'll just let us go?
Marcus opened his eyes, suspicious of such an easy escape. I will, the Queen confirmed.
But, Marcus Chen, you must come alone.
Your companions may remain aboard their vessel, unharmed and free to leave at any time. But, this choice must be yours alone to make. Commander Park grabbed Marcus's arm. Sir, this is obviously a trap. Once you're aboard their ship, I know, Marcus said quietly. He looked around the bridge at his crew, these brave volunteers who had followed him across the galaxy on an impossible mission. But, I don't see any other options that don't end with Earth becoming a battleground.
Dr. Crawford stepped forward. Captain, our scans indicate the Queen's psychic abilities are limited by distance. Once you're aboard their vessel, she could influence your decision-making process. The neural implants might not be enough protection. Marcus nodded, having considered that possibility during the long journey to Vega. Then, I guess we'll find out how strong human willpower really is. He turned back to the viewscreen, where Queen Zara THYSS waited with infinite patience. I accept your offer, Marcus said. 3 days to understand what you're proposing. But, I want your word that my crew will remain safe regardless of my final decision. You have it, the Queen replied immediately. I swear by the light of 1,000 suns that your companions will come to no harm through action or inaction on my part. A docking tube of flowing energy extended from the nearest Dominion vessel, connecting with the Silent Arrow through some form of technology that bypassed their shields entirely. Marcus felt his heart racing as he prepared to leave everything familiar behind and enter a world that operated by rules he couldn't even imagine. Sir, Commander Park said as he reached the airlock, how will we know if you need help? Marcus paused, one hand on the control panel. If I don't return in 3 days, take the ship back to Earth. Tell them I tried to find another way. The airlock cycled, and Marcus stepped into the energy conduit. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced, not quite walking, not quite floating, but moving through space as if reality itself was gently carrying him forward. He emerged into a reception chamber that defied every human understanding of interior design. The walls curved in impossible directions, creating spaces that seemed larger on the inside than physics should allow. Light flowed like water through crystalline channels, providing illumination that adapted automatically to his human vision. Queen Zara THYSS stood waiting for him, and Marcus realized that the transmission had not done her justice. In person, she radiated a presence that went beyond mere physical beauty. She was tall, perhaps 8 feet in height, with proportions that seemed perfectly balanced despite being utterly non-human. Her metallic skin shifted through subtle color changes that suggested mood and thought, while her hair, if it could be called hair, flowed like liquid mercury around shoulders that were both delicate and strong. Welcome aboard the Star Weaver, Marcus Chen, she said, her voice now carrying harmonics that resonated through his bones. I am pleased that you accepted my invitation. I'm here to learn, Marcus replied, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. To understand what you're really asking of me. What I am asking, the Queen said, moving closer with fluid grace, is that you open your mind to possibilities your species has never imagined. What I am offering is a partnership that could transform both our civilizations. She gestured, and the chamber around them shifted, walls becoming transparent to reveal the vast fleet assembled outside. Ships from dozens of different species, each one a masterpiece of engineering and art combined. The Dominion is not an empire built on conquest, Queen Zara THYSS explained. We are a confederation of species that chose unity over isolation, cooperation over competition. Your people could join us not as subjects, but as equals. And all it costs is my freedom? Marcus asked. Your freedom to remain alone, the Queen corrected. Marcus Chen, I have studied your species for longer than you might believe. Humans are not meant for isolation. You thrive on connections, on relationships, on the bonds you form with others. What I offer is the ultimate connection, a joining of minds, hearts, and destinies that will benefit not just us, but the billions who look to us for guidance. She moved to a section of the wall that flowed aside at her approach, revealing a balcony that looked out over a garden that somehow existed in the vacuum of space. Plants from 100 different worlds grew in perfect harmony, their roots intertwined in soil that sparkled with its own inner light. This garden, the Queen said, was planted by the first royal couple of the Dominion, over 1,000 years ago. Each species that joined us added their own native plants, creating an ecosystem that should not be able to exist, but thrives because of the diversity each member brings. Marcus stepped onto the balcony, feeling artificial atmosphere envelope him as he gazed at the impossible garden. It's beautiful, he admitted. As could be the union of our species, Queen Zara THYSS said softly. I do not ask you to abandon your humanity, Marcus Chen. I ask you to help me understand it. To teach me what it means to feel as humans feel, to love as humans love. And, in return? In return, you would become something more than human.
The bonding process would grant you capabilities your species cannot imagine.
Extended lifespan measured in millennia rather than decades.
The ability to traverse space without technology. Access to knowledge accumulated across 1,000 civilizations. Marcus turned to look at her, seeing something in her luminous eyes that he hadn't expected: uncertainty. For all her power, for all her advanced civilization, Queen Zara Thyss was taking a risk by proposing this union.
"You're afraid," he realized. "Fear is not the correct translation," she replied carefully. "Concerned, perhaps.
The bonding ceremony has never been attempted between species so different.
There is a possibility that the process could fail, harming us both. Then, why take the risk?"
The Queen was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus could see emotions playing across her features, expressions he was beginning to recognize despite their alien nature.
"Because," she said finally, "in all my centuries of existence, I have never felt the intensity of emotion that your species displays as a matter of course. Your capacity for love, for sacrifice, for hope in the face of impossible odds, these things fascinate me beyond measure. I want to understand them. To experience them. To know what it means to feel so deeply that you would risk everything for another."
She turned to face him fully, and Marcus saw vulnerability there that was entirely human in its nature.
"I am lonely, Marcus Chin.
Surrounded by billions of subjects, allied with dozens of species, commanding power beyond measure, and I am utterly alone. Until I encountered your species, I had never met beings who could understand the depth of that loneliness." Marcus felt something shift inside him, a crack in the wall of resistance he had built around his heart.
This wasn't the cosmic threat he had expected to face. This was something far more dangerous, a person in pain, reaching out for connection in the only way she knew how. "The 3 days," he said carefully. "What exactly did you have in mind?" Queen Zara Thyss smiled, an expression that transformed her entire face from remote beauty to something achingly human. "To show you wonders beyond imagination," she said.
"To share with you the accumulated knowledge of 100 civilizations. To let you experience what it feels like to be truly understood by another consciousness.
And to learn from you what it means to be human."
As the artificial day cycle dimmed around the impossible garden, Marcus realized that his mission had just become infinitely more complicated. He had come prepared to face a conqueror, but found instead a lonely queen who wanted to learn how to love.
The question was, could he teach her without losing himself in the process?
The first day aboard the Star Weaver shattered every assumption Marcus had made about alien civilization. Queen Zara Thyss proved to be not just a ruler, but a scholar, artist, and philosopher whose mind operated on levels that challenged human comprehension while remaining strangely accessible to his own thoughts. She took him through chambers that defied physics, where entire star systems were mapped in three-dimensional light sculptures, where the history of galactic civilization played out in holographic displays that responded to their combined consciousness. Marcus watched the rise and fall of species across millions of years, seeing patterns of growth, conflict, and eventual cooperation that painted the universe as far more complex than humanity had ever imagined.
"Your species stands at a crossroads," the Queen explained as they observed a display showing Earth's position in the galactic community. "You are young, aggressive, innovative, exactly the traits needed to break stagnant patterns that have developed over millennia. But, you are also dangerously close to the path that leads to self-destruction." Marcus studied the holographic projection showing various possible futures for humanity.
In some timelines, Earth flourished and joined the galactic community as equals. In others, humanity spread like wildfire across the galaxy, consuming resources and destroying ecosystems until other species were forced to stop them. In the darkest projections, Earth itself became a radioactive wasteland as humans turned their weapons on themselves. "These are just possibilities," Marcus said, though the images disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. "Possibilities with statistical weights based on observable patterns," Queen Zara Thyss corrected. "Your species has tremendous potential, but it also carries seeds of its own destruction. The union I propose could tip the balance toward the positive outcomes." "How?" The Queen gestured, and the display shifted to show Marcus himself, but changed. His human form remained recognizable, but it glowed with inner light, moved with impossible grace, and seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "The bonding process would make you a bridge between species," she explained. You would retain your human emotions and intuition while gaining access to Dominion knowledge and capabilities. More importantly, you would become proof that cooperation between radically different species is possible. Marcus watched his transformed self in the projection, seeing a figure that commanded respect from both humans and aliens alike. It was seductive, he had to admit. The chance to become something greater than he had ever imagined. What would happen to my humanity? He asked. Nothing would be lost, the Queen assured him. Enhanced, expanded, elevated, but not erased. Your human perspective is precisely what makes this union valuable. As the day continued, Marcus found himself drawn into conversations that ranged across philosophy, science, art, and the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. Queen Zara Thyss was brilliant beyond question, but she was also genuinely curious about human perspectives on concepts she had studied for centuries. Explain to me, she said as they sat in a chamber filled with crystalline formations that sang in harmonious tones, why humans create art that depicts suffering. Your literature, your music, your visual arts, so much of it focuses on pain, loss, tragedy. My people have moved beyond such negative emotions. Marcus considered the question carefully. Maybe that's exactly the problem. Pain and joy aren't opposites, they're part of the same spectrum. Without one, the other loses its meaning. A song about overcoming hardship hits harder than one about eternal happiness because we know what it costs to get there. The Queen's expression shifted through several configurations before settling into something that might have been wonder. You suggest that suffering is necessary for true appreciation of beauty? Not suffering for its own sake, Marcus clarified. But, the knowledge that things can be lost makes them more precious. The fact that we die makes our lives more meaningful, not less. Fascinating. Queen Zara Thyss stood and moved to one of the singing crystals, her hand passing through its surface as if it were made of light. My people achieved near immortality centuries ago. We eliminated disease, aging, violent death, all sources of involuntary suffering. But, perhaps we also eliminated something essential. What do you mean? Passion, she said simply. The driving force that compels beings to create, to love, to sacrifice everything for a cause greater than themselves. We have become efficient, peaceful, but perhaps also diminished. That evening, if time had meaning aboard a ship that existed partially outside normal space, the Queen showed Marcus something unexpected, her private chambers. Not the formal throne room where she conducted official business, but a space that was intimate, personal, and surprisingly vulnerable. The room was smaller than he had expected, filled with objects that seemed to have emotional significance rather than practical purpose. Sculptures from dozens of different worlds, musical instruments that had been crafted by species that no longer existed, books written in languages that predated galactic civilization. These are my treasures, Queen Zara Thyss said, gesturing to the collection. Each one represents a moment when I encountered something that moved me in ways I could not fully understand. Your species has already contributed more such moments than any other. She picked up what appeared to be a human music player, incredibly ancient by Earth standards. This belonged to one of your exploration teams that encountered my scouts 50 years ago. The music contained within it. I have listened to it thousands of times, trying to understand the emotions it evokes. The device activated at her touch, filling the chamber with the sound of classical Earth music. Marcus recognized the piece immediately, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the Ode to Joy. The familiar melody hit him like a physical blow, carrying with it memories of home, of humanity's greatest artistic achievements, of the civilizational heights his species could reach. This composition, the Queen said softly, speaks of triumph over adversity, of unity emerging from discord. When I first heard it, I understood something about your species that all our observations had failed to capture. What was that? That you create beauty from chaos. That your greatest achievements come not despite your limitations, but because of them. She set the music player down carefully, as if it were made of the most fragile crystal. I want to understand how that is possible. Marcus felt something fundamental shift in his understanding of the situation. This wasn't about conquest or political alliance or even romantic attraction in any conventional sense. Queen Zara Thyss was seeking something that her advanced civilization had lost, the ability to feel deeply enough that it hurt.
The bonding ceremony, he said. What would it actually involve?
The Queen turned to face him, and Marcus saw hope kindle in her luminous eyes. A melding of consciousness that goes beyond anything your species has experienced. For the duration of the ceremony, our minds would be completely open to each other. No secrets, no barriers, no possibility of deception or misunderstanding.
That sounds terrifying.
It is, she admitted. For both of us. You would experience thoughts and memories spanning millennia, knowledge that might overwhelm a human mind.
I would experience the full intensity of human emotion for the first time, feelings that might be equally overwhelming for someone of my kind.
Marcus moved to one of the chamber's windows, looking out at the impossible vista of the Dominion fleet. Ships from dozens of species moved in perfect coordination, preparing for a wedding ceremony that would either unite two civilizations or destroy them both.
What happens if it goes wrong? He asked. We die, Queen Zara THYSS said simply. The psychic shock of failed bonding would burn out both our minds simultaneously.
Or perhaps something worse, we could become trapped in a shared consciousness that is neither fully human nor fully ethereal, but something damaged and incomplete.
And you're willing to take that risk?
Yes. The certainty in her voice was absolute. Because the alternative is to continue existing without ever truly living.
You have shown me what I am missing, Marcus Chen. I cannot go back to the emptiness I knew before.
The second day brought deeper revelations as Queen Zara THYSS shared the true history of the Dominion. Marcus learned that she was not the first royal to attempt bonding with another species, but she was the first to try it with beings so fundamentally different from her own people. The other attempts, she explained as they stood in a memorial chamber dedicated to previous royal lines, involved species that were already compatible with our psychic nature.
The bonding process was little more than a formality.
But, you humans, you are psychically null by our standards.
Your minds operate in complete isolation from one another. Is that bad?
It makes you unique in the known galaxy, the Queen replied. Every other spacefaring species has some degree of natural telepathy or empathic connection. You are the only ones who developed advanced civilization while remaining completely separate individuals.
Marcus studied the memorial holographs showing previous royal couples from Dominion history.
Each pair appeared perfectly matched, their forms complementing each other in ways that suggested deep compatibility.
So why me? He asked. If humans are so different, why not choose someone from a more compatible species? Queen Zara THYSS was quiet for a long moment before answering. Because compatibility is not what I seek. Understanding is.
Your species faces challenges my people resolved long ago: mortality, resource scarcity, internal conflict. But, in facing those challenges, you have developed capabilities we have forgotten.
She gestured to another hologram showing human history, condensed into a few crucial moments.
Marcus saw the development of agriculture, the first cities, the Industrial Revolution, spaceflight, the colony ships spreading human civilization to distant stars. In less than 10,000 years, the Queen continued, your species went from primitive hunters to galactic explorers. You accomplished in millennia what took other species millions of years. That rapid development required something my people lack: the ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances.
And, you think bonding with me would give you that ability?
I believe it would give both our species something neither could achieve alone, she corrected. Your adaptability combined with our knowledge. Your emotional depth combined with our longevity. Your creative chaos balanced by our structured wisdom. The third day arrived with a tension that seemed to permeate the entire ship. Marcus could feel the expectation of the assembled fleet, hundreds of thousands of beings waiting to witness something unprecedented in galactic history. He had spent the night in quarters adjacent to the Queen's chambers, his dreams filled with visions of possible futures. In some, he saw himself standing beside Queen Zara THYSS as they led a golden age of cooperation between species. In others, he watched from Earth as Dominion ships darkened the sky, bringing war to a humanity that had rejected their offer of alliance. Today you must choose, the Queen said when she came to escort him to the ceremony chamber. She wore robes that seemed to be made of captured starlight, flowing and shifting with each movement. But, know that whatever you decide, these past 3 days have been precious to me beyond measure. Zara, Marcus said, using her name without the formal title for the first time.
If I refuse, will you really let my people go?
I gave my word, she replied. But, Marcus, I must also tell you that my refusal to press your species into service will not be shared by other Dominion members.
There are factions who view humanity as a threat that must be contained or eliminated. My protection extends only as far as my personal influence.
The ceremony chamber was vast beyond human comprehension, filled with representatives from every species in the Dominion. Marcus felt the weight of countless alien eyes upon him as he walked beside the Queen toward the center of the room, where a structure of pure crystal waited to facilitate the bonding process. The ceremony requires consent from both parties, Queen Zara THYSS explained as they approached the crystalline formation. Even now, you may refuse and depart safely.
Marcus looked at the assembled witnesses, then at the Queen beside him. In the past 3 days, he had come to understand her not as an alien conqueror, but as a person seeking connection in a universe that had become too vast and too empty for her to navigate alone. If I agree, he said quietly, what guarantees do I have about my people's freedom?
None, she admitted. Beyond my word and whatever influence our union might provide.
The universe offers no guarantees, Marcus Chen.
It offers only opportunities to choose between possible futures. Marcus stepped up to the crystal formation, feeling its energy resonating through his bones. Around the chamber, the assembled representatives of galactic civilization waited in perfect silence.
I have a condition, he said finally. Name it. The human colonists you've been holding, I want them given a real choice.
Full information about what joining the Dominion means, what staying on Earth means, what other options might exist. No pressure, no manipulation.
Just honest choice.
Agreed, Queen Zara THYSS said immediately. And, I want Earth to be approached as equals, not as subjects.
If humanity is going to join your confederation, it has to be as partners, not conquered people. That was always my intention.
Marcus took a deep breath, thinking of his crew still waiting aboard the Silent Arrow, of the billions of people on Earth who were counting on him to make the right choice, of the 47,000 colonists whose freedom hung in the balance.
Then, I consent to the bonding ceremony, he said.
The Queen's expression transformed into something radiant beyond description.
And, I consent as well.
The crystal formation activated, surrounding them in a cocoon of light that lifted them off the chamber floor. Marcus felt the Queen's mind touching his own, tentative at first, then, with growing confidence as their thoughts began to merge. The experience was overwhelming. He found himself experiencing memories that span centuries, knowledge that encompassed technologies beyond human understanding, emotions that operated on scales his species had never imagined. But, through it all, he remained himself, human thoughts and feelings amplified rather than erased. At the same time, he felt Queen Zara THYSS experiencing human consciousness for the first time. Her wonder at the intensity of his emotions, her awe at the way human minds could leap from one concept to another through pure intuition rather than logical progression, her profound appreciation for the way humans could find beauty in imperfection. When the bonding was complete, Marcus found himself changed but not diminished. He could still think human thoughts, but now he also had access to Dominion knowledge that would take lifetimes to fully explore. He could feel Queen Zara THYSS's presence in his mind, not as an intruder, but as a partner whose thoughts complemented his own. How do you feel? The Queen asked, and Marcus realized she was speaking both aloud and directly into his consciousness.
Different, he admitted. But, still myself. You?
More myself than I have ever been, she replied, and he could feel the truth of that statement resonating through their shared connection. Around them, the assembled representatives of galactic civilization erupted in celebration that spanned dozens of different cultural traditions. But Marcus barely noticed. He was too busy marveling at what they had just accomplished.
So what happens now? He asked.
Now, Queen Zara THYSS said, taking his hand in hers, we build the future together. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Dominion's newest vessel, the Unity, as it approached Earth's solar system. Beside him, his wife, and he still sometimes marveled at that word, watched with equal fascination as humanity's home system came into view. The bonding had worked better than anyone had dared hope. Marcus retained his human perspective and emotional range, but now had access to knowledge and capabilities that made him an effective bridge between species. Queen Zara Thyss had gained the emotional depth and creative intuition that her people had lost, making her a more effective leader than she had ever been before. "Are you nervous?" she asked, and Marcus could feel her genuine concern through their mental link.
"Terrified," he admitted. "I left Earth as Captain Marcus Chen. I'm returning as Prince Marcus of the Ethereal Dominion. That's going to take some explaining." The Queen laughed, a sound that still sent warmth through Marcus's chest every time he heard it. "Your people will adapt. They are remarkably good at that." She was right, of course. The human colonists had indeed been given genuine choices about their futures, and roughly half had elected to remain with the Dominion while the others requested transport home. Those who stayed had become valuable members of Dominion society, bringing human perspectives to problems that had stagnated for centuries. Earth itself had reacted to the news of Marcus's marriage with everything from celebration to outrage to bewilderment. But the flow of Dominion technology and knowledge that came with the alliance had quickly won over most skeptics. "Contact from Earth," reported the ship's communication officer, an elegant being from a species that communicated primarily through color changes. "Admiral Rodriguez wishes to speak with Prince Marcus."
Marcus smiled, still getting used to his new title.
"Put him through."
The familiar face of his former superior appeared on the view screen, looking older than Marcus remembered but wearing an expression of profound relief.
"Marcus, you magnificent bastard," the Admiral said without preamble. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Changed everything?" Marcus suggested. "Saved us all, more like. The technological exchange programs alone have advanced our civilization by centuries.
Medical breakthroughs, energy systems, faster-than-light communication, it's like humanity just skipped ahead 1,000 years of development."
"That was the idea," Marcus replied. "How are people adjusting?" "Better than expected."
Having the colonists return with stories of life in the Dominion helped convince the skeptics that this isn't some elaborate conquest plan.
"And the fact that you're still obviously human." Rodriguez paused. "You are still human, right?"
Marcus looked at his wife, feeling her amusement through their bond.
"I'm human plus," he said finally.
"All the best parts of humanity, with some significant upgrades."
"Speaking of upgrades," Rodriguez continued, "we've been working with Dominion engineers on some joint projects. I think you're going to be impressed with what Earth has been building."
As the Unity moved deeper into the solar system, Marcus saw what the Admiral meant. New space stations orbited Earth, their designs incorporating both human and Dominion technologies.
Ships moved between the planets that were clearly collaborations between the two civilizations.
Most remarkably, Mars was green. Not completely, but patches of vegetation were clearly visible from space where terraforming projects had succeeded beyond all previous human efforts.
"The environmental restoration programs are working faster than we ever hoped," Rodriguez explained. "Dominion atmospheric processors are cleaning up Earth's pollution while their agricultural techniques are bringing dead lands back to life."
Marcus felt a deep satisfaction watching humanity taking its first real steps toward becoming a truly spacefaring civilization. Not as conquerors, but as partners in something larger than themselves.
"There is one thing," Rodriguez said, his expression becoming more serious. "Not everyone is happy about the changes.
There are factions on Earth and, in some of the colonies that view the Dominion alliance as surrender rather than partnership."
"Resistance movements?" Marcus asked. "More like political opposition right now, but there have been some incidents. Nothing violent yet, but the potential is there." Queen Zara Thyss stepped forward so she could be seen on the transmission. "Admiral Rodriguez, this is not unexpected. Change of this magnitude never occurs without creating fear in some minds. The Dominion has experience helping species through these transitional periods." "Your Majesty," Rodriguez said, inclining his head respectfully. "What would you recommend?" "Time and patience," she replied.
"And people like your Prince Marcus, who can demonstrate that cooperation benefits everyone involved."
"Fear of the unknown is natural.
But fear of the proven beneficial is simply ignorance, and ignorance can be educated away. As they continued their approach to Earth, Marcus reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. He had begun this journey as a simple starship captain faced with an impossible choice. Now he was something new, a bridge between worlds, a living proof that different species could not just coexist, but thrive together.
Any regrets? Queen Zara THYSS asked privately through their mental link. Marcus considered the question seriously. He had given up his old life, his independence, his purely human identity. But, in return, he had gained so much more. None, he said finally, both aloud and through their bond. I had no plans to wed until an alien queen made her choice. Turns out it was the best choice either of us ever made. The queen smiled and took his hand as Earth grew larger in the viewscreen. Together, they prepared to begin the next phase of their journey, not as ruler and consort, but as partners in building a future that neither of their species could have achieved alone. Behind them, the Dominion fleet followed in perfect formation, carrying representatives from dozens of civilizations who had come to welcome humanity into the galactic community. Ahead lay Earth, with all its beauty and complexity and potential. And, between them stood Marcus Chen, no longer the man who had left Earth months ago, but someone entirely new, a bridge between species, a symbol of cooperation, and living proof that love could transcend any barrier when it was freely given. The future stretched before them, bright with possibilities that neither human nor ethereal could have imagined alone. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.